So what inspired Martin and I to begin the Mindfulness Training Institute was we'd been teaching for many years in the Buddhist tradition, teaching mindfulness, insight meditation practice, and we were witnessing this explosion of interest in mindfulness and the interest in mindfulness across all sectors of society, in business, in education, in healthcare, in psychology, in sports, in government, administration. And what we were seeing was that there was this fascinated interest in mindfulness, lots of science coming up about the efficacy of mindfulness practice. And yet we were concerned that unless we had a body of teachers who really understood the depth of the practice of mindfulness, really knew it from their own experience, then if that wasn't possible, then the mindfulness teachings would really suffer in the world. And we thought it was essential, especially since we've been studying mindfulness practices for decades within the Buddhist tradition, we thought it would be really important to have a training that really speaks to the depth and the scope of the teachings from where mindfulness has been practiced for thousands of years. Train people in understanding that from their own experience, and then teaching that in a secular format. So, as I said, we were concerned about the explosion of interest and yet the lack of rigor and integrity around training teachers. So we thought we would combine our experience and our different skill sets and create an institute where we really offered a deep, rigorous training that was grounded in the tradition of the practices of the four foundations of mindfulness, and yet also integrating neuroscience and other contemporary approaches and helping people find a language and a form to teach that in secular environments like schools, like therapy clinics, like hospitals, like businesses, but still grounded in the liberating scope and potential of mindfulness teaching and practice. So what are some of the outcomes that our graduates can expect? So, as I've said, we ground people in the four foundations of mindfulness. And so the first 6 months of the training are really deepening your understanding, deepening your own practice of mindfulness in all the different facets that can be cultivated in the four foundations of mindfulness. And then we take that depth of knowledge and experience, and then we look at how do we teach, how do we translate this, how do we share these practices in a form that's really accessible and immediate. So we've created a 6-week practicum and a 6-week course called the SIT course, 6-week introductory training to mindfulness. And that's the form of vehicle with which graduates can share these mindfulness teachings. But really what we hope people discover and integrate is really the depth of their own mindfulness practice and really learning how to take their own seat, how to feel confidence in their own practice, because that's where these teachings and the capacity to teach them comes from. And so we ground people both in their practice and in this body of understanding of mindfulness teachings, and then allowing them to utilize a 6-week form that is a really good way of delivering an introduction to mindfulness practice. But we're very clear that from the outset, we're training people in understanding and being able to teach mindfulness. And the protocol, the form in which they use, is secondary. And so the skill, the confidence that comes from practice teaching all year, we start students practice teaching mindfulness from day 2 of the course. There's a lot of experience, there's a lot of learning. We create a tremendous fun and engaging and collaborative learning community. People often form lifelong friendships as part of going through this training, learning as much as from each other as they do from myself and Martin. But mostly what happens for people is, especially after they delivered their practicum, is they really begin to take the seat of knowing what it means to be a mindfulness teacher and learning how to deliver these teachings with confidence and with clarity. What do I love about teaching this program? Well, I've got many years of teaching this now with my dear friend and colleague Martin Aylward. We've known each other for almost 3 decades now. We started practicing Vipassana in India together, so it's just a joy and a delight to be sharing these teachings with him, and our friendship and our mutual skill sets is definitely something that we both love, and it informs the training. I love the collaborative learning community that we create and this wonderful body of students on the training. Also love the fact that we've created now a student body of almost 300 teachers all around the world, delivering programs in healthcare and business and education and the justice system and to communities in need. And so it's lovely to be part of this growing mindfulness teacher community that are really doing amazing work in the world sharing these practices. So I also love drawing on the depths of my own practice and study and training, 35 years now in the Buddhist tradition, and gleaning what's necessary, useful, and helpful, and sharing those with students both in Europe and in the States. And it's also just very delightful to work with a group of people over the course of a year, get to know them, get to understand their interests, their perspectives, and then also to see how students flower. People often come somewhat hesitantly, maybe a little unconfident, not sure of their own ability. And then over time, as they both deeply embody the teachings, learn more about the depth and the scope of the teachings, and then get to practice teaching, seeing these flowers really start to shine and radiate and feel that inner confidence of what it means to be able to teach mindfulness and really bring these liberating teachings to people. So many ways that I love doing this work, and delighted to continue teaching both in Europe and in the States and beyond.